You're not just in the writing business, you're also in the client relationship business. You need to be able to talk to your clients. And these specific strategies are really effective so that you can handle awkward or weird things or feedback or different ways to handle the everyday stuff that comes up as a freelance writer. I'm Mandy Ellis, and I built a six-figure freelance writing business. And now I help other freelance writers build high earning businesses they adore without the burnout, overwhelm, or stress. And I'm here to help you understand how to connect with your clients, to make clear next steps, to avoid weird things, and to actually enjoy your time working with your clients. This is how we get those great long-term relationships. So we're just going to hop into it. We're going to go 6 to 1. So number 6 here, we want to make sure that we always outline our expectations. So we have our contract to do this. You need to always make sure that you work with a contract. This is something that I feel like a lot of writers just bypass. They're like, well, the client says they don't use contracts, or I don't have a contract, so like I can't do that. And I think when things go wrong, because they will go wrong, when things get messed up, this project scope, you have scope creep, or you need to double check something, or you thought you were getting paid here when you're not. That's what the contract is for. The contract is the agreement between you two to abide by doing the project in the right way. So when we're kind of looking through all of these pieces to outline expectations, your contract is a really effective communication strategy or communication tool to outline boundaries and expectations with your client. So we are making sure that we have payment terms, we have the right clauses in there for rights. We outline what the scope is. We write put in there what all the legal stuff that, like, if something goes wrong, here's the legal stuff, and then they sign it. So we have something that we can enforce if they're not paying for the work, or if we need to, deal with it legally, which is very rare if you needed to deal with it legally. But if it happens, now you have something that you can actually use to move forward with. We also are setting things in the contract. There's a couple things I want to make sure that you have the contract, but you set other things outside the contract. So for me, I like to set actual deadlines, the dates the things are due outside the contract, because it always changes. You set a deadline and then someone doesn't pay you on the right time frame, or they want to add XYZ thing, or this thing happens. And just putting the deadlines in the contract for me ends up being a mess, because let's say you don't abide by the contract, or the deadline in the contract. Now it's like, what else are you not abiding by in the contract? So for me, I like to keep those out of the contract. I like to have payment terms in there, and how much they're paying, and when those things are due, like the net terms, the legal stuff, the project scope, all the things that are important in a contract. But for me, I like to leave deadlines outside, and anything that is variable, anything that could change, anything that, not the project scope, but anything that could change, that is usually something we could discuss via email or during a meeting. I think it's better to leave those out of the contract. But anything where, like, you really want strict adherence to it, that's really important. So you want to make sure you have that contract every single time to outline expectations and boundaries with your client. You can also put your, like, in terms of boundaries, you can put your work hours. You can put, like, hey, expect a 48-hour response time. You can put things like, if you ask for less than a 7-day turnaround, you're subject to a rush fee. You can tell them that there's interest due if they don't pay things on time, all the stuff that really helps you set boundaries and protect your business. So that's really important. Number 5 here. Number 5. You need to be clear, direct, transparent, and honest. Do not lie to your clients. Do not exaggerate things. I think that we want to have our clients feel like they are getting that, plush Four Seasons or like Ritz-Carlton service. But you also want to be realistic. So don't over embellish the process, over embellish things where it ends up being like they were expecting, this Ritz-Carlton at like a Motel 6 price. So you want to be very careful. But you always want to be clear, direct, and honest with your clients, and you want to be as transparent as possible. The better that you can be at these 4 things, clear, direct, transparent, and honest, the more your clients will do that for you. There won't be this weird runaround. There won't be as many tire kickers. There won't be as many people where you're like, oh my God, I got to get out of this contract. You want to make sure that you're not overdoing it just to sell something or just to get a project. You want to be setting expectations and tell them what your deadline schedule is, and be realistic with them, while still, highlighting the benefits of working with you, and, the goals that you can achieve, and things they can drive towards while working on content. And in terms of being realistic, you also want to make sure you're asking the right questions on your calls and in your emails to be clear, direct, honest, and transparent. So if you grab my free seasoned veteran cheat sheet, if you go to mandyellis.com/cheat sheet, you will get some questions to ask on those client calls to make sure you're on the same page and that you're getting honest and direct answers to things so that you can find personality fit with your clients. So if you go to mandyellis.com/cheat sheet, you can grab it. It'll also give you some onboarding things. So once you decide this client is a good one to continue onboarding, it'll give you the steps that you need to follow to onboard them properly. Number four here, number four. So we need to figure out where we're going to talk to them, right? One of the communication strategies is like, are we on email? Are we on LinkedIn DMs? Are we on Twitter DMs? Are we on Slack? Are we sending voice notes? How does this work? So this is something I like to suss out on a client call. So I want to make sure that however I'm talking to them is very clear, where I don't have to go to 6 different channels. That's one of my major pet peeves, is when someone's like, oh, well, I'm going to send you an email, but then if you don't answer that email, I'm going to go reply on LinkedIn, and then I'm going to go to Slack. Or what ends up happening is they just put it wherever they are, right? So let's say right now they're in their inbox, so they email you. Another time they're on Slack, so they do that. No, we have one channel. I'm not going to all the channels to find things because it makes a huge mess. So you need to figure out where you're going to do that, where you're going to mainly communicate. And then you're also going to figure out, where are you going to submit work? Are you going to just share it with them on Google Docs? Do you have a folder? Are you putting it in Dropbox? Are you emailing it? We need to set the expectations of like how that works, because when we have this communication, it's really easy for them to say like, it's always emailed, right? We speak through email. She emails in the work. The invoices come via email, and this is where I'm putting feedback, edits, and comments. So it's very clear to meet your client's expectations, how to do that, why to do that, and that makes the project really successful. So we want to be careful here, specifically with like opening up too many lines of communication. So be careful about giving text message or phone access or Voxer hours at all times. So you want to be careful about clients who are like, text me over the weekend, or like, they're want you to just call you all the time, or send you Voxer notes and expect you to get back to them immediately. Like, that's more full-time employee stuff. We want to be careful with clients not overdoing that. You want to pick the channels that make the most sense, turn in your work on the channel that makes the most sense, have a process defined for how they can give you feedback and edits and who can do that. Um, so you want to be really careful about that. Now, if you're working with magazines, they usually have some way to do it. They'll tell you what to do. Hey, you need to go submit your article through this portal, go put your invoice in this portal, or do everything via email, and make sure it's not in Google Docs, it's in a Microsoft Word doc or something. So you want to make sure that you kind of pay attention to the processes. But if you're not working with magazines who have very well-defined processes most of the time, with your clients, especially when you're communicating between turning in work or just your daily or weekly communications or getting feedback, that needs to be clearly mapped out, because it really helps you zero in on just doing the work rather than searching all these different things, trying to find out where was that message and where were those edits and where's that thing. It can get really messy really quickly. Number three. So if you need a deadline extension, this happens all the time. If you need a deadline extension, email your editor or your client as soon as possible. Editors know, and clients know, business clients know that things come up. They know that there are emergencies. They know that something happens, but what they really like and what they really appreciate is just being informed. You don't want to miss your deadline and then say like, oh, well, I needed an extension. This thing happened. Quickly, like, we have so many tools at our disposal now. Quickly send an email to someone and just say, hey, I need I had an emergency. You don't have to tell them your whole life story. You can just say, hey, something came up. I'm having an emergency and I need a deadline extension until blah 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 date, right? Make sure you suggest something in there, because that helps them see like the level of the emergency, or it helps them see like, okay, it's not Friday but Monday, I could deal with Monday. So make sure when something happens, you ask for a deadline extension. The caveat here is that you cannot agree to an extension with a magazine. Sometimes, like, they give you a month sometimes to do something, and then you can't wait till the day of and say, I need 2 more weeks. You can't do that. So you need to make sure that if you need a deadline extension, it's not the day of. It could be the day before your deadline, but try to do it as early as you can. But they're not going to give you a couple weeks. They're going to give you a few days. So anytime you get a deadline extension, expect it to be a few days, not a week, not 2 weeks, but a few days. And you want to make sure you're planning your work appropriately. So don't take something where it's like a 48-hour turnaround and then you need a deadline extension. Like you needed a deadline extension before you ever asked for that. So look for things, right, that are at least a 2 week turnaround. If you need a deadline extension because something happens, because something will happen at some point, then you can ask for that deadline extension as soon as possible. Don't wait till the day of. Try not to do it the day before. Do it, the Monday before or as early as possible as you can. But being really communicating this to your editors and your clients, that makes a huge difference. It helps with reliability because clients and editors still get ghosted, and you don't want to be one of those people who just ghosts them and just leaves. Even if you're going to turn in the assignment, you want to be upfront and clear with them, so make sure that you're giving them the heads up on that. Number two. So make sure that from the very beginning of the time you start working with a magazine or you start working with a business client, that you're on the same page. Your personalities are a fit, or they like your story idea and the focus. They don't have any other questions or experts to recommend, which is usually with magazines. Or um, when you get on your initial call with a business client, however they're acting makes sense and works for you, because however your client, editor, magazine, whatever, however they act on that initial communication, that's how they act throughout the whole relationship. Nothing magically changes when they sign a contract or give you an assignment or do something else. So we want to make sure that however they act, assume that's how it's going to be forever. So if they're disrespectful, if they won't negotiate with you, if they are not a personality fit, if it's really difficult to talk to them or get them to get on the same page, that's how it's going to be for the whole project. And this also means that when we're getting on these calls and we're talking to them initially, you need to set boundaries about like what they can expect in terms of deadlines. Magazines are a little bit different. You kind of have to roll with their deadlines. Sometimes you can suggest a different one and get a couple days on there, but most of the time you're going with their deadline schedule. But you want to be careful about response times. Magazines, I would try as much as you can to hit that editor back in 24 hours. Business clients, I would make it a little bit longer because they can treat you like a full-time employee if you're answering really quickly all the time. So from the very beginning, we're setting expectations about response time, when you're working, when you respond to things, where you respond to them, and setting those boundaries around our work hours. Number one thing that I think gets forgotten a lot of times when we're talking about keeping clients in the loop or we're building long-term relationships is that you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do weird things. You're going to say awkward things. You're going to have difficult clients, and this happens. So I'm going to tell you a quick story. When I was first kind of starting out as well, not starting out, but I was like in my career, and I said this is always like my favorite thing. So when I sent out my holiday things, I sent out holiday emails to thank my clients for being my client, and there was like a couple parts that I just copied and pasted in, and instead of saying it was a pleasure to work with you, I said it's been pleasuring or something to work with you, or it's been pleasuring to work with you, some very uncomfortable typo. And I still got work from it. I still got people, sending me work even though I made a typo. So I think you're going to say weird things. You're going to make a typo. There's autocorrect. There's all kinds of things. So you can handle it. You can get through it. I think part of communication is like owning mistakes or being able to laugh it off or being clear. But I think really here when you're in this situation, you basically want to listen. So if your client's really upset, you want to listen to them and hear them out. From the very beginning, you want to listen to your clients' expectations and what they want, and you want to be able to respond to them. We want to be able to take feedback, especially from our magazine clients, and listen to what they're asking us to do. And then, like, if you if you make a mistake and your client fires you, like that happens. Or if you decide that this client is not a fit for you, you can fire them too. But there's a lot of times where when we're going through these things, that we're building relationships on being like authentic, real people, and authentic, real people are not robots. They make mistakes. So it's okay to make mistakes. It's going to happen. Just understand how you can troubleshoot it and how you can kind of move forward. So I hope that this has been helpful. And in our next video, we're going to go over kind of more about that client management in terms of expectations. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to over deliver, but not over promise, how to make sure that you're on the same page and that you're really doing a good job managing all of your clients in a great way. So I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.